This is, I believe I'm correct, we are poised for one of the greatest weekends in the history of sports. The PGA will be teeing off today out in San Francisco, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It's going to be in prime time. So if you are wanting to watch, there are an early tee group, right, which I believe is only available on ESPN Plus. But what's that early tee group? It's a foursome that's pretty impressive, right? I know it's Tiger. Is it Brooks Koepka? Who's all playing together on Thursday in the early group?
Yeah, Tiger is paired with Justin Thomas and Rory. So that's a pretty powerful
That's a pretty awesome quad, yes.
Absolutely.
And that's an early tee-off, right? So that's only available on ESPN Plus if you want to watch them all day, basically.
Yeah, I believe at Central Time it's like at 10:30, I believe.
Yeah.
So, I mean, not too early, but they're definitely going off early in California.
And then the game, you'll be able to watch the rounds all the way until 10 o'clock Eastern on ESPN tonight. And then come Saturday and Sunday, it'll go till 10 o'clock Eastern and 9 o'clock Eastern, I believe, is the way it's set up. So we're going to have a PGA Championship in prime time. That's going to be exciting to see what happens there. That's a very good positive. We also have Major League Baseball by tomorrow. In theory, knock on wood, the Cardinals will be back in action. And after all the Marlins drama, by the way, the Marlins came out, and they're turning into an interesting story in and of themselves. They won a back-to-back doubleheader yesterday, a 7-inning back-to-back doubleheader. And they are now sitting at 5-1 atop the NL East right now. They obviously have only played 6 games, and other teams have played up to 13 games. So they have a lot of games to make up. But positive on the Major League Baseball front, at least, knock on wood, again, knock on wood, anything can happen. By tomorrow, every team can be back playing in Major League Baseball, and they can start to play more doubleheaders and start to catch up. And if you are a baseball fan and your team hasn't been impacted so far, which is still a lot of them, then by Saturday, you're going to be a fourth of the way through the entire Major League Baseball season, right? So I think if you're a Dodger fan, for instance, I believe I'm correct, Danny G, we got 13 games that have been played. If you're a Braves fan, I know because my 9-year-old insists that we put the Braves games on every single night in my house. So I've been watching a lot of Braves baseball because my 9-year-old's a big fan. Then we have already gotten to almost a quarter of the way through the season there as well. So there are a lot of moving parts. NASCAR is going on. We're going to talk with Shannon Spake next. They are up in Michigan, I believe, this weekend. So there are a ton of different moving parts. Speaking of moving parts, we are about to get, I've got to get the details taken care of, but we're going to get cardboard cutouts at the Dodger game.
Yeah, we are. It's official. I emailed you and Roberto the info for the picture taking, and I'm going to get that all turned in at the beginning of next week. And our pictures in our cardboard cutouts in the seats will be at Dodger Stadium through the rest of the season.
All right, that's going to be exciting. So there you go. Dodgers making a World Series run. We'll be there to watch it.
Our faces on cutouts that big is a scary proposition.
No doubt. That's why I'm on radio. So everything is moving in a positive direction there. The NHL, if you're a hockey fan, Eddie, what letter grade would you give the NHL on their playoffs so far?
As far as putting on the event or the quality of play or
everything. I haven't watched much of the sport that I have watched the least is the NHL. So I have almost no idea how the average hockey – I mean, it seems like the average hockey fan is in heaven having 5 or 6 games back-to-back-to-back all day long. But how would you assess the overall product as the resident NHL fan on the show?
Yeah, I mean, the play is a little bit rusty, and having, 3 games a day on the same ice surface makes for some bouncing of the puck. But, I mean, those were all things I think that were to be expected. I'll give them a B+.
Yeah, so you've been pretty excited about it. And how much time are you spending watching hockey right now?
When I wake up, it's on, and when I leave for work, it's on.
And you watch pretty much all day?
Yeah, I mean, I have to get some sleep, so I usually miss the early game, and then I'll miss the end of the late game. But other than that, it's on all day.
Yeah, and it's absolutely heaven for hockey fans out there. So that's going on. Now, everything can't be positive. The NBA is the most political of all of the sports leagues. And look, I've watched a lot of the NBA action, and the NBA on the court, the Grizzlies have fallen apart, right? They came out with a 3.5 game lead. And I need to pull up the most recent part of the schedule. But I think the Grizz have a very good chance. If you're paying attention to the NBA, they're really the only storyline at this point in time to be paying attention to is what's going to happen with the bottom end of the playoffs. And the Grizz came in with a 3.5 game lead over everybody else. They immediately have lost their first 4 games. And I think there's a very good chance they could go 1-7 or even 0-8 and lose 8 straight to knock themselves out of the playoffs. But right now they have a 1-game lead, I believe, on the Portland Trail Blazers, a 2-game lead still on the San Antonio Spurs and the New Orleans Pelicans. And Phoenix looks pretty decent too. They are 2.5 games back. Sacramento is 3 games back. Anything can happen basically down the stretch. But I think the Grizz are not going to even be in the 8-9 game. They play against the Thunder tomorrow. The Thunder will be favored in that game. Then they play against the Raptors, who might be playing the best of anybody in the NBA right now. They have hit the ground rolling in the bubble. Then they play against the Celtics, and then they play against the Bucks. And you have to hope, if you're a Grizzly fan, I think, that the Celtics and the Bucks are just like, hey, we don't even care about these games, and maybe the Grizz could steal a couple of those in order to get to the 8-9 matchup. But that is the overall number one story, I would say, that is out there. There isn't any drama at all, I believe I am correct, in terms of the Eastern Conference as to who is going to be able to make the playoffs. So the only real uncertainty is what's going to happen with the 8-9. And if you're curious about this, why does it matter? Well, the Lakers have already clinched the number 1 seed. The Lakers haven't looked very good, frankly. Now, it's hard to judge because once they clinch the number 1 seed and basically beat the Clippers, it's hard to really get that worked up about how things are going to go in terms of the bubble there. But this is a little bit intriguing to follow and think about who could be the matchup against the Lakers. There's a possibility that the Trailblazers could be that matchup, and that could be a challenge, particularly in the backcourt for the Lakers. We'll have to wait and see. But right now, I would say that the Trailblazers are the favorite. What would you guys say? Who do you think is going to end up in the 8-9 matchup? I'll start with you, Dub, because I know you're following this pretty aggressively because you're a Spurs fan. Who ends up in that 8-9, and do you agree that's pretty much the only story left for the next week in the NBA?
Yeah, that is the story in the NBA right now down in the bubble in Orlando. I agree with you. Portland, I mean, they look like a totally different team because they have had injury problems all season long. And if they had been healthy all year, I think, they'd be more like a 3, 4, or 5 seed here, which would be, you're right, it'd be a tough matchup for the Lakers in the first round. I think Portland is ultimately going to get that 8 spot. The 9 spot, I said San Antonio yesterday, but that's because I'm a homer. I think it's going to be New Orleans because looking at everyone's schedule, New Orleans, I think, has the easiest path to get that 9 spot. So they'll be, in theory, the 9 and 8 will be playing a single elimination / double elimination little mini first round matchup there to get that 8 spot.
Yeah, if you're not aware of what the scenario is in the 8-9, the 8 seed would only have to win 1 game. The 9 seed would have to win 2 in order to be able to advance to the playoffs. And if you look at the Pelicans, they started off slow but got the win over the Grizzlies the last time we saw them play on Monday. They're back playing. They have an early tip at 1:30 Eastern against the Kings, which is basically an elimination game for the Kings. The Pelicans need to win it. But then they get the Wizards, they get the Spurs, which will be a big game. They get the Kings again, and then they get the Magic. Those are all games that the Pelicans could win. So their schedule is a lot easier than the Trailblazers. So the on-the-court product, I think, has been pretty good. The downside for the NBA is LeBron James and Donald Trump are now feuding back and forth, and LeBron has basically said, hey, if you have a different political belief system than I do, I don't care. We don't care if you're going to watch. I open up the phone lines, let people weigh in. Who should we go to first, Dub, on whether that is a good move for the NBA? I clearly think it is not.
Yeah, we got Shane in New York.
Shane, what you got for me?
Clay, my man, hey, just got back from Rosemary Beach. Great beach town down there, man. Yeah,
That's
man.
where we got the beach place. I spent all of May down there with my family. That's where our beach place is. What did you think? Do you like it?
First time there, beautiful beaches. Never seen so many kids in my entire life. Like great family
Oh, yeah.
location. Listen, had nice cold beer, dinner at Shades Bar and Grill, watching the Yankees game. So enjoyable that was, because I live in New York City. You still cannot dine inside a bar, inside a restaurant. Everything is moved to the curb outside. It's 95 degrees. You got trash on one end of the street. You got the homeless on the other end of the street. So besides the fact that Cuomo has now killed probably up to 10,000, they're saying, in the nursing homes, he's bankrupting the city. Great job.
It's a mess for a lot of people. I'm glad you could get down to Florida and have a good time. What do you think about the NBA?
Hey, what I think about the NBA? F the NBA. I'm done with the NBA, Clay. Listen, I think Laura Ingraham summed it up a long time ago to LeBron James. Shut up and dribble. And Mike Ditka recently also. If you're going to kneel during the anthem, you need to get the hell out of the country. You know, a lot of people watching sports, as you know, Clay, watch sports as an escape. And in 2020, look what we've had to escape from: coronavirus and politics. So we don't need to turn on the NBA to see politics. And I just want to make one comment about watching sports in general. And I agree, golf is going to be great this weekend with the major and no politics. But you really got to give a lot of credit to MLB. I mean, they are playing the sport not in a bubble. They're dealing with the inevitable of outbreaks, working around it. They're still traveling, playing in their own stadiums, staying in hotels. I mean, look at how much the NFL is going to learn from MLB.
Thanks for the call. Look, I think that they're going to be measured, the MLB is, compared to the NHL and the NBA and the bubble scenarios throughout. But what the MLB has done that I think is important is they didn't allow the Corona Bros to win. The Corona Bros in sports media and all the Corona Bros out there active on social media, as soon as the Marlins outbreak happened, you saw, Danny G, we talked about it on that Monday, right? That Tuesday when we came back last week. Everybody was like, oh my God, you've got to shut down the league. What are you doing? How in the world would you try to, this is my Corona Bro voice, how in the world would you try to play right now? Go to your homes, never leave your house again, get underneath the covers, everybody's going to die. Why are we trying to play sports? That's my Corona Bro voice. And there are tons of people out there who are in the Corona Bro community that never want sports to come back, and they never want to leave their houses, and they're like, until a vaccine happens. You know, we had initially, like, it's kind of funny and sad simultaneously to think about the trajectory of where we've gone. Initially, back in March, we were going to go into our houses for 2 weeks to flatten the curve. There was never any talk of, hey, we're going to wait for a vaccine. Hey, we're not going to be able to live our lives. It was, we're not going to overload the hospitals. And no hospitals have been overloaded. Didn't happen in Arizona. Didn't happen in Texas. Didn't happen in Florida. All those places have reached their peak and begun the backslide there, right? In New York, they had an incompetent leader in Andrew Cuomo. New Jersey's got an incompetent governor as well. They, unfortunately, added tens of thousands of unnecessary deaths because they were incompetent, and they sent sick people back into nursing homes. But everywhere else in the country has seemed to be able to handle this thing pretty well, except for the people who took Andrew Cuomo's lead. And so, to me, Major League Baseball was strong in responding the way that they did. Now, I don't care about the kneeling in terms of not watching, but to me, the NBA's gone over the top by doing three things. Kneeling wasn't enough. They had to put Black Lives Matter on the basketball court. And by the way, it's Black Lives Matter, only a few Black Lives Matter, right? Because the murder rate has skyrocketed in this country, and the vast majority of people who are being killed right now in the country are black. And I don't hear anybody saying, hey, maybe we need to stop this stupid defund the police argument. And I don't hear any argument at all coming out about that. And then they also decided in the NBA, hey, we are going to put social justice warrior slogans on our jerseys as well. All three of those. And now LeBron James has taken the next step as if that wasn't enough and said, hey, if your politics conflict with ours, we don't care if you don't watch, which is insanely dumb to me, because the goal to me if you're in a sports league, should be to have as many fans as possible, because that's how you get paid. I want as many, if I'm an athlete, I want as many people as possible. Doesn't matter what kind of athlete I am. Rock climber, swimmer, basketball player, marathoner, baseball player, football, whatever you are, the more people who watch what you do, the more money you make. I'm a capitalist. I want to make as much money as possible off my labor. I want as many of you as possible to listen to my radio show. Go download the podcast, by the way. Make sure you subscribe. Danny G is going to read you some 5-star reviews before the show is done. If you want to criticize me for that, go for it. But my goal is to have as many people as possible listening to what I say. That's how capitalism works. I would never come on this radio show and say, hey, if you have a different political opinion than me, I never want you to listen to this program again. I want everybody. I want to have a big tent. I think it's stupid of the NBA to say, basically, hey, if you disagree with us about Donald Trump or anything else, peace out. We don't care about you anymore. Whether you're pro-choice or anti-choice, I want you to listen. Whether you're a gun guy or an anti-gun guy, I want you to listen. Whether you are a Democrat, Republican, Independent, I want you to listen. I'm pretty straightforward. I want as big of a tent as possible. NBA feels differently. Who's up next, Dub?
We got Peter in Florida.
Who?
Peter.
Peter, what you got for me?
Yep. I like the last caller. He stuck up for everything that you're saying. I like the way you guys are sticking up for the fans. And I'm going to say this much. They're going to lose the NBA, every last military family. Any family that has anything to do with veterans. They're going to lose the baby boomers. They're going to lose all the Trump supporters. They're just writing themselves off. And, a lot of people are already used to no sports. So they were getting comfortable that there's no sports.
Yeah.
So like you say, that they need to get this audience back. And I think people are tired of LeBron James. Sure, he's got millions of dollars, and good for him. But, us fans, you need us fans to watch these sports. And I'll just listen to you guys.
Yeah, I think you made a really good point about how people's habits can change. Because when something goes away, I think the NBA thought, there's going to be this massive uptick in interest because there's a pent-up demand, and it didn't happen. And we saw a massive pent-up demand uptick. NASCAR, UFC, Major League Baseball, PGA, all of those sports saw their overall audience jump in a big way when they came back because there was a pent-up demand for their product. The NBA didn't. Compared to every other sport coming back, the NBA ratings have tanked. There hasn't been this upswell of massive interest that's out there, and I think it's kind of fascinating why that might be. Joe in Maryland, what you got for me on the Outkick VIP?
Hey, Clay, love the show. I think I called in yesterday, and I think I already kind of gave the take, which is, I think what he's doing, what LeBron's doing, he's being honest. And the sentiment doesn't surprise me, and frankly, it's the message I already took away. And the previous caller talking about the military families, well, I'm ex-military myself, military family, but sadly, I think they'll probably still have some fans from in there. There's some stories I wish I had time to tell you someday over a beer, but I just don't think that LeBron and these basketball players understand the economics that you're laying out to care. I think they just think that the money will magically be there, enough for them. And I don't even think they understand, and I don't know if they care about everybody else in the NBA that might get affected.
Yeah, thanks for the call. Here's the challenge that I do think Adam Silver and owners have to be thinking about. When you say we don't care if you watch, which is what LeBron James said, if you have a different political opinion, they're not going to have probably very big crowds, if any at all, for games in the near future in the NBA. Not talking about going on right now. Obviously, in the bubble, they're not. I'm saying when they come back for another season, if the standard is until there's a vaccine widely available, we can't have crowds present at NBA games, which seems to be the standard of their perspective there, then I don't understand how in the world you would be alienating television viewers. right? Think about it. Their only audience now is television. And I think it's something like 40% of NBA revenue or 35% or whatever it was, gate revenue, came in from people who decide to pay to buy tickets and concessions and everything else when they actually have games. You're already losing that. And then you're telling your dwindling television audience, hey, we don't care about you. And by the way, you're in the most competitive market you've ever been in because we've never seen an August like this. PGA starts today, NHL, Major League Baseball, and then think about what the NBA playoffs are going to be competing with. You're going to be competing with Major League Baseball. You're going to be competing with the NHL. And oh, by the way, the NFL is going to be back. We're talking about potentially the worst rated NBA playoffs of all time when you look at all the competition that's going to be out there. And you compare it to what usually happens when the NBA playoffs are going on, the only thing they're having to compete with from a playoff perspective is the NHL. This is potentially a disaster in a way that I don't even think most people have even recognized or thought about it. Anybody else do we want to get to, Dub, before we go to break?
Yeah, let's be quick here. Robert in Las Vegas.
Robert, what you got for me?
Hey, Clay. Great show, by the way. Hey,
Appreciate that.
Guy talking about the military perspective was right on point there because I'm a 20-year Army vet, and one of my buddies, who's still in, by the way, he became a huge OKC fan because he's from Oklahoma, and he's also so disrespected by the whole national anthem thing, the kneeling, that he refuses to ever watch a game again.
Yeah.
He bought all the gear. He bought the Durant gear, the Russell Westbrook gear, everything. He's done. He threw it all away.
Thanks for the call and for your service, too. I don't think everybody's making that decision. But there are enough people making that decision. Look, we know the NFL ratings dropped 19% during their anthem controversy. We know that. That's 100% a fact. And then when they got back to football, ratings came back up. I don't think the NBA gains a single fan by protesting. I really legitimately believe that. I don't think there's anybody out there who's like, oh, I'm only watching the NBA because of the protest. I think they lose a ton of fans because of the protest, purely from a business perspective. If you have to make a choice to do something or not do something, if you only lose fans by doing it, is there any way at all to justify it? I don't think so.